Traders Live podcast.
Churgers, welcome. This is
Thank
your
you.
life.
Yes, I feel welcomed on my own podcast. This is the whole reason I started a podcast, just so we can interview myself. So we're here now.
I think we're done after this episode, aren't we? We're just doing the two.
Well, I've got everything out of it that I want. So
Me too.
It's
no, mate. No, a lot of much better and more interesting people to come, no doubt. So, guys, this is obviously our second episode of the Traders Live pod. First one was with myself, and second one is the other half of the production, which is Churg. So, and mate, I just see your screen up here before we get too far into it. What are we looking at today, mate?
So it's around midday, thereabouts in daylight savings time on a Monday. So I'm kind of going to be looking for a reversion play on the Oz 200. I was thinking about getting interesting, mixing up with some equities, but liquidity is usually dead around midday. So I should probably go ahead and start the timer for myself. And I think I might just throw some shorts on and get cooking. And I'm just going to play the reversion back to open here. So this is a 30-minute chart on a Monday. So alrighty, I'm going to sell.
Any rhyme or reason, mate, this one, or it's just we've obviously rallied?
I do like a good midday reversal, sort of as a bit of a strategy I'm trying out at the moment. As you know, I'm sort of equities is where I've played, and so for me, it's I guess something I'm still learning a lot. And so, what better place to learn it than in front of everyone who's watching? And, what could possibly go wrong? So
you'll be fine, mate. So what's just want to talk us through. So we're on the Aussie 200 this morning for people that are not on YouTube. And what's happened this morning, mate?
So we had quite a strong rally off of open there. Obviously, markets rallied in the overnight session, US, etc. And then the odd thing this morning was that gold had a really, really good, and actually the chart still here, had essentially a 2% move. I think it touched all-time highs. And I mean, that's sort of coming back now. So there was a bit of interesting unforeseen moves in the market. So just keeping an eye on that over the next hour, see if there's any sort of opportunity I can find. And yeah, I think the news item was that caused gold to spike, I think, was in the Red Sea. There was some commercial vessels and a US vessel that might have had some sort of military activity happen around it. And so I think that could be that, but it's still early days, so we'll see how we go.
So gold spiked and it's coming back. Excuse me, and the Aussies also spiked on open, but I think the S&P's fallen. So yeah, interesting start to the day, mate. You've probably picked a good time to get involved. So
I really hope so, because it's my whole trading career riding on this.
So much pressure. So guys, obviously this is our second episode. Everything we say here, just a disclaimer, it is a demo account. We're just using this as a bit of a unique way to get inside some really interesting traders' minds in terms of trading for an hour and see where they land at the end of it, and just listen to them, how they think about trades, what their risk management plans are, etc., etc. So don't take any of what we say as gospel is the bottom line of that. But Churgs is already up $100 in 1 minute, mate. So at this pace, you'll outpace me on the leaderboard by the end of today. But I guess we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, I figured that you set a really good sort of benchmark last week. I should come in and just, for the sake of our guests, set a really poor benchmark this week. So it's not too bad. I'm thinking that might be the way to go.
Very good. And anyone listening on the pod, as I said, we are recording video as well. So good to jump on YouTube if you get a chance. So
yeah. We have some really interesting guests lined up really quick. We've got some really interesting guests lined up. And the other thing I just wanted to quickly put in is if you, the listener or viewer, have anyone that you think is worth getting on, who has a really good story, interesting way of approaching the markets, leave a comment or get in touch with us and sort of give us a prod in the right direction in terms of guests. And while you're there, also just subscribe to the channel or leave a review on the podcast, because that sort of helps us understand that we're on the right path and doing the right thing. So with that, I think we should get into a bit about me, I guess.
Yeah. Yep. So, mate, how much did you weigh when you were born? Tell me all the early life of Churgers. And mate, you were born. Where were you born? Brizzy?
I was no, I grew up and was born in the middle of Queensland. So Emerald Rockhampton is a really small sort of mining centric town where, sort of 2011 we had the mining boom and bust. So that was my childhood, living in this very small country town, and did all my schooling, primary and high schooling there. And the
Were you
beach was four
on
hours
property
away.
or?
No, no. So my parents both work in farming and agriculture, but they just had a couple of acres on the river, which sounds amazing, but it's a couple of acres on a brown small river in Emerald. And I I lived there since day one to until I moved out of home when I was 17 and finished high school. So yeah, that's essentially where I grew up.
How'd you find country life?
Very good. I knew absolutely no better. I um, had the best time of my life. I spent a lot of my hours in the swimming pool. I swam from when I was really young until sort of I finished high school, and that was my main sport. I got really into that. Was training sort of 3 hours a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, while doing school and everything like that. So that was
Thorpey.
a lot
Hey,
of my
Thorpey.
childhood. Yeah, no, not quite, but I did give it a fair shake of the sauce bottle, and I mean, like reflecting onto sort of trading and business now, that's probably where I learnt a lot of discipline and going to achieve something, and the delayed gratification. Because I mean, I was up at 4:45 every morning in the pool, no matter what temperature, at 5, and was doing the exact same thing in the afternoon to the detriment of my schoolwork. But that was, I think, a really sort of good founding cornerstone to my early life that sort of set me up for what I think's been, a pretty good journey so far in terms of adult life. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd completely agree with that, mate. And I still do that. I do the swim and the steam and cold shower in the morning, and it's that thing that they say. If you do something hard, that early in the morning, like for me, it's a cold shower. It's everything else for the rest of the day seems pretty straightforward to overcome. So I'm not sure why these days you seem like you're half asleep when we do our pods in the morning, but hopefully you get back to some kind of routine, mate, at some point.
Yeah. I mean, now I'm just trying to get to the gym or do a run in the morning, and
You got a girlfriend as
sometimes,
well, mate.
that falls through. Yeah, that makes it tough. Far out. Aiden, come back to bed.
How old are you
Yeah,
now,
no,
mate?
but I'm 24 at the moment, so yeah. I've been trading for a few years. Did a few years in the working world. Did a few years at university. So that's sort of been me up until now. Yeah.
So what you finished school what year?
2016.
2016, right? And then went to
Yeah.
uni.
Yeah. So I moved to Brisbane, which is essentially the capital city of my state in Queensland, for those who are foreign listening. And that's where I attended university, which was a pretty big thing for someone in Emerald. It's sort of a weird thing to look back on, but I actually went through my list of Year 12 Facebook friends the other day, and I mean, 90% of them, not 90%, it's probably 50, 60% are married or married with kids and are still living in that small town. So I think it was a really important thing for, I guess, what I wanted to achieve in life and everything that I got out of Emerald. It did a lot of good things for me, but it was another really important thing that I did that sort of set me on a different trajectory.
Yeah. I got a mate that grew up in Gympie, and he's got the same experience. And he always sends me songs that remind him very much of growing up in a small country town, etc. So I'm sure it's the same. That he's just happy that he got out. I think is his kind of feeling on it. But
Yeah, no, it is very much a trap, but it's not. I mean, if it's something that makes you happy, and I see a lot of my friends from school are happy. They've got great partners. They very much love their kids and everything like that. So it's just what different people have different wants and different desires, and mine wasn't to stay in Emerald. So yeah, and then I moved to uni. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to quickly cut in. If we're 10 minutes in and you're $600 up. It's moved 10 points. So not a bad start for a young fella, but we'll keep it. So what's your thinking at the moment, mate? Are you just going to ride or die, or what's the?
Yeah, I think I am going to ride or die. I'm just going to hold this bad boy until it goes to zero, I think, through the hour. I know it's not particularly crazy. I do have I guess, a very small amount of free capital available that I might sort of either redeploy on a pop, or I might even just come in for some YOLO and do something on gold. Yeah.
So what would cause you to stop out here? Like if this was a real account, what would you be doing?
I think I have a very tight stop, and I don't know how to put this physically on this platform, but I have a very tight stop above the high of day that we've just seen. Just because my original thesis to the trade was a reversion, and we've seen that drive. We've seen sort of midday now lapse, and my whole thesis, whether it's right, wrong, it's still got a lot of rough edges on it, but my thesis is that we've now seen the high of day and that will fade into the afternoon. So a stop for a loss would be above the high of day. In terms of a stop, now that I'm in profit, we'll let it eventuate a bit more, but yeah, that's sort of still up in the air for me. So yeah.
Okay, fair enough. And so onto uni, mate. What did you study there?
Yeah, so I went to Brisbane and I did 6 months of IT, didn't like that, and then did business and commerce for essentially 4.5 years at university there, which was it was good. I learnt some things, but I was also living on college throughout that time, and
wow.
Yeah, when you live on campus, I think the proximity to university does not correlate to the amount of time that you spend at university.
One of my regrets, mate, is not living on campus for a short period.
Yes, a short period's probably key. I did 3 years there, which is what sort of everyone does. And I mean, by the third year, I was very, very keen to get out. But it was great for me because obviously I was moving from a small town. That's where I found my first friends, had my first interests, things like that. And yeah, like it was regardless of my grades, which are like I definitely could have done 100 times better. Regardless of my grades, I would not have changed that experience for the world. And it was absolutely formative in me gaining social skills, figuring out what life outside of a small town is like, and just how big and expensive things can get, and also just making friends. So yeah, I mean it was a really good time.
I find that country people are the best type of people in terms of they're usually so genuine and honest, but sometimes they don't have that probably social butterfly side to them as well. So yeah, it's interesting. Living on campus, I'd imagine that you would have evolved in that respect as well.
I'm just going to quickly take nearly half off here. I've got 50 units. I'm going to just buy another 20 at market, and I'm just obviously that's covering my position back to a 30 unit net now. So
you've just nailed a 20-point drop.
Yes, yep. So that's just had a really good drop, nearly back towards market open there, and I think there might be a little bit of breathing room here in the interim. So whether that's I add in again when it gets a little bit higher, or I just free carry the rest down, I am yet to decide. But we'll just cool it for the time being.
Cool it down.
Lock in a little bit of profit.
This is not going how I hoped, to be honest. This your trading, but anyway.
Right. Thanks.
So, mate, academically, you're fairly clever.
Mate, that's a really good question. My grades wouldn't reflect it, but for the amount of time I put into my university, I would say. I mean, I was barely there. I was too busy. I wasn't like partying or anything like that. It was honestly like more looking at different business ventures, having different interests. I had 1,000 ideas, and none of that was actually in looking at the books. So, I mean, my grades were okay. I know if I'd applied myself, I would have been so much better. So
Yeah.
that's just,
So you've always, is that a
Yeah.
uni thing, or you always had that kind of entrepreneurial, curious, kind of businessy brain?
no, always had the entrepreneurial side in various forms. Like when I was younger, my first business ever when I was really young is I used to buy the seconds of a local grape farm, and I'd repackage that and essentially get on my bike or go door to door and sell to my neighbors and essentially deliver them fresh produce to their door. And I got that to the point where I grew an emailing list, and essentially people would email me their orders every week, and I would then go to the grape farm and say, hey, I need 50, 100 kilos of grapes, and then I would get delivering around town. So that was
on your treadle.
Yeah. Yes, yep, that was my first good business, and that was actually in the end there I did have to get mum to help, because around Christmas time, then when they ordered, we had like 3 people order 5 kilos of grapes. So I wasn't carting 5 kilos at a time from one side of town to the other. So I guess in my way I had my first employee there as well. So,
wow. And and so they were seconds. They were not prime grapes.
No. And then I would essentially take delivery of those, and I would then cut all the poor sort of grapes off of the fruit they'd given me, just leave the good stuff, and then repackage those into kilo bags that I just bought from Woolworths, and that would be the produce that I sold. So yeah, that was a good little business. I think that did me quite well.
Yeah. What kind of margins were you looking at there?
Oh, I can't remember, but I think at the time I was buying them for 6, selling them for 11 or something like that.
Yeah,
By per kilo.
Decent.
So
for a kid, $5 a kilo.
Yeah. No, 100%. So yeah, and always had a job when I was in Emerald. I worked at a car wash for a few years. Excuse me, in between.
You still like getting soapy, don't you?
Yes, mate, I do. I very much do. But I think
I'm talking about car wash. You do a car wash once in a while.
Oh, sorry.
I wasn't being dirty, mate.
No, I wouldn't expect any of that from you. Yeah, I do a random day at a car wash every once in a while, and I do also do sort of buyer's agency work. So I just on a Saturday will go around to open homes and write reports for this buyer's agency company that's located interstate, and from there I actually use that money to pay bills and everything like that, and whatever I make on trading is it's cream on top. So that's my current setup. Yeah,
right. And is there anything else job-wise that you think was interesting that kind of taught you anything coming in? We'll get to the trading in a bit, but anything formative from that point of view?
Mate, I did a couple of years at a startup, or I did a year at a startup, and that was really interesting to see. That was also when money was quite easy to come by. Interest rates were low, everyone was happy. But it was interesting to see that the ability for people to raise money, they didn't have to have a solid balance sheet of this is how we're exactly going to do stuff. They had an idea and they had the ability to execute, and that's what they could raise money on. And they had to go knock on 100 doors, and 2 might have said yes, but that's their round raised.
And they had a story.
And they had a story, and half the story was absolute ridiculousness, but they bought into that story, and man, like that was a really interesting time just to see that. And I think that opened my eyes where I'd come from, having to have everything very much squared away, and there was just no harm in going out and just getting on with it and having a crack, and everything will fall into place after that time. So
right, yeah. So the risk, I guess, your risk appetite increased a little bit after watching other people, in the startup.
Yeah. And then from there, I went and worked for 2 years. Sorry. From there, I went and worked for 2 years at a property agency. And so I did their economic research sort of for the national line of the business, and also did their commercial and residential research for about 2 years there, which was really, really interesting. That was straight out of uni. I learnt a lot about what I did and did not want out of a career from that. So that was sort of the evil that I had to take. Not the evil, but it was the step back I had to take to then take step forwards. So
yeah, right. Interesting. So before we move too much on to the trading, just looking at your positions here, Churgs, what are your? It's got your little. I think you pretty much nailed the low there, and it's bounced 8 points or something like that. What are you thinking here?
I could, if it bounces much more, I might add to my short a little bit, but other than that, I don't have a strong bias either way here, honestly. Just sort of sitting on my hands with what I've got.
So that's kind of in terms of your midday kind of reversion play. That's essentially trade it and then take some profit if it moves in your favor, and set a stop above or below, depending on what direction you're trading. Above that, the day high or low at that point.
Yeah, perfect. I'll probably explain it better than I can, so that's great.
Okay, perfect. So, mate, when did you start on your trading / investing kind of journey?
Mate, my first investment was when I was 17. My dad did a good job, and it's probably exactly how you're doing it now, when I was younger, getting me aware of the stock market and aware that you can essentially make money by buying parcels of companies, or getting involved in these massive financial sort of markets where money flows. And I remember fondly, actually, I was maybe 10 or 11, and I was walking at a national park with some friends, and my dad was there. We were doing like a boys trip or something like that. My dad and I were walking, and he explained to me dividends, and he did it in a way that he pretty much said to me, he's like, I know that you've made some money on mowing lawns or whatever it's been. He's like, if you give me $100 today, I will give you, I think it was, no, it was if you give me $10 today, I'll give you essentially $1 every year or something like that. And then at the end of 10 years, I'll also give you $100. And so he taught me the power of sort of compounding, dividends, what interest was, and things like that. And I remember learning that concept on that walk, and in the same walk, going up to a friend and going, dude, we got to, like, if I give $10 and you give $10, we can then have like $200 in 10 years, and we'll be making plus the $10 back over that 10 years. And I mean, yeah, my friend just went straight over his head. He wasn't interested. He was too busy talking about the next, Lego or whatever it was, that was the Nerf blaster, I think it was at the time. And
that's pretty impressive too, mate, in terms of the delayed gratification. Like, I know they've done studies for, on young kids where they offer them one lolly now or two lollies in 10 minutes time. And the ones that choose the two lollies in 10 minutes time turn out to be the entrepreneurs and the guys and girls that do, pretty well in later life. So that's pretty impressive, mate, that you got your head around that.
Yeah. And that was like my first exposure. And then a couple of years later, I sort of was asking my dad about my granddad, who's currently, he moved over from South Africa when he was mid 40s or 50s, and my dad was sort of early to mid teens. He took the whole family from South Africa and moved them to Australia, and essentially had a farm in South Africa. My granddad sold that and then lived off of like value investing and dividends while he was in Australia. So for the second half of his life, and so that sort of opened my eyes, as well as, my granddad had just essentially had some capital and was able to make a steady return over a lot of years. That, it was a modest life that they had, very, very modest life, but they were able to sustain themselves off of that. So that was sort of that second bit of exposure. And I mean, my granddad's really, really old now. He's sort of 99. And he had a health scare earlier in the year, and it was I went to see him in hospital, and he was obviously in a state of delirium or whatever, and he just kept asking for the FMG dividends. That was the only thing he was asking for. He's like, "What are the dividends?"
Oh, that's
And it
classic.
was obviously it was really, really sad at the time, but I look back and go, "That's exactly what I'd be doing." Like that
It's
is
focus.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
hilarious.
amazing. Brilliant. So
Yeah.
you started with equities, and I know you're doing a bit of futures now, but the equities, what kind of equities did you start with?
Yeah, so my first couple of investments when I was 17, I got my dad to open me a ComSec account. I bought some BXB, so Brambles. They do renewable shipping, and my great due diligence on that was globalization. You know, people are buying more. I sort of saw, well, people can buy stuff on the internet now, so it'll be shipped a lot more. And renewable, sustainable. That's good for the environment. And that was my due diligence. I think I bought that around 10, and I think I do still hold that in my parents' account to this day. But the big one that sort of kickstarted me was a investment in a small cap mining company. And I think many Australian punters probably have a similar
Yeah, I was
story
about
as
to
how this
say.
is going
Yeah.
to go. But I bought, I'd essentially saved up like $10,000 or $11,000 by the time I was 17, and I pretty much pumped every single dollar that I had into this small cap stock. And they've done share splits now, but it was 2.3 cents. I bought this thing, and it was I bought essentially a lot of that and held that for 5 years and added more over time and everything like that. And that was a really, really big learning experience on so many fronts, from learning the exploration to production phase of mining and sort of the highs and the lows of that, in terms of, you see this pump on great drilling results and suddenly you're up 30% in a day, and then they then have to go get the money to fund the mine, and so then you're raising it at a discount and you go into this 52-week low and you were up so high, and then you do it again, and that is all of that was really, really good learning. And then also, yeah, delayed gratification is probably something that we touched on, but I mean, I kept that all through college, and yeah, pretty much, it gave me like a lot of good life experience as well. Like with that money, I was able to take my girlfriend and I to Italy for a month and a few things like that along the way, and I really got to understand the under the hood of a business. Like I knew absolutely everything about this business. I'd met with the CEO. We'd had meetings. I really knew the nuts and bolts of how this business was running in its early stages. So that was, yeah, really, really good. And that level of due diligence for how much money I had in it, obviously, I think I got up to 30 or 40 grand cost base there. That was the amount of due diligence I did for that based on my whole worth was equal to that. And so that sort of helped me understand how much effort I should be putting into every sort of investing or financial decision I make. And that was that. I made a few other investments.
Just on that one. So you mentioned you spoke to CEO, etc., etc. So, like for most people out there, they'd they'd be buying the shares, doing their research or whatever, but they'd never really think to knock on the CEO's door. And I'm trying to get to like the efficient market hypothesis here as well, in terms of like all the available information is already out there. Like, do you think it's necessary to go that deep on a company that you've invested in, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I do. I think less so, almost less so with a mining company. And I know that sounds odd, but you should be able to quickly tell whether a CEO of a mining company is a lifestyle CEO, or anyone on the board for that matter. I mean, you look at their resume, you look at their past performance, everything like that, and you can quickly tell where and how much they're getting paid, what their incentives are. You can quickly tell without talking to management what their motives are. And I mean, you show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome. It's that simple. And this guy,
so you can get that through public information though, or
yeah, that you can all obtain by reading. And small cap mining companies, they're unlikely to tell you much else that could be of interest. Obviously, it's always good to like cover all of your bases, but in terms of like small cap mining companies, it's not like you get to go talk about their marketing or go understand their margins and how the dollar's affecting that and how they think the sentiment of their staff is going. You know,
Yeah.
small
So
weird
you
things
could
like
probably
that.
you could probably correct me. You know a lot more than me, but probably that you can trust management, and then obviously the drilling results and their tenements and all that kind of. They're, in my mind, for a junior miner, they're probably the two major things that would influence my decision. I guess this is leading to a plug for what you're working on, which is miners data. Do you want to tell us, I guess, how you kind of came to starting that business and what it does and a little bit about it?
Yeah. So I mean, the couple of major things I look at is the geography. I think that's something that a lot of people have been caught out with recently. Having if you're going to be putting good money into something, having it in a tier one jurisdiction that doesn't have risk or has very little sort of political or geographic risk, that's very important. And then the second one is being able to do a peer comparison on companies and understand at what stage of the life cycle they are and where they should be trading at. And you'd be surprised about the inefficiencies that come up with this. Companies that have really, really good drill results that don't have any, I guess, have really, really good drill results, are at a really good stage, don't have any debt or anything like that, and they are, you know, still really underpriced compared to their peers in the market. And yeah, I mean, quickly touching on miners data, I essentially started tracking all of this using, I got drill results from all the way back from 2012 to now across commodities. And what I was doing is when a catalyst came out for drilling results, I would compare that to previous drilling results from companies. And I was able to see, oh, okay, so, you know, a random mining company 6 months ago released similar drill results and they moved 30% in a day. This is really, really umbrella, but they moved 30% in a day based on those drilling results. Okay, cool. Today, XYZ company has just released drilling results. They're similar and they're gapping up 5%. Okay, cool. There might be some upside here. Obviously, there's more source to that, but that's the sort of meat of that burger. And it gives you a really good understanding of it's just sort of like with your data, it gives you like that the wind is at your back. You know that you're not offside in your decisions to take trades. And
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because that's you know, as you mentioned, like to me, it's a lot of it is mental for, you know, my data stuff in terms of, you know, it's just good to be certain with your decisions, and if you're wrong, you're wrong, but at least you know, yeah, as you say, you're going in the right direction.
100%. And I mean, miners data ended up becoming a lot more than that. It's now like a lot of commodities. I've tracked all these drilling results and projects, everything like that. And what it gives me is this complete picture that I can then go and analyze. And I realized that what I was doing, there's two ways to make money in the markets, right? There's either interpreting information, which then allows you to make an investment decision, or it's providing that information for people to make decisions on, right? And so I decided to I could make, and the other thing with small caps is there's an issue around liquidity. So I could have the best data in the world, but I can't trade with the amount of size that I want to. So what I went and did is commercialized it, essentially been putting together a user interface for this. And yeah, hopefully in the next month, hopefully by the 15th of December, we'll be live with a product that people can use themselves to do their own analysis and form their own opinions. And like, there's many different ways to cut that cake for everyone's individual sort of thesis to the investment in that space. But yeah, I just sort of decided to become the data provider for that because that's essentially the second way to make money in the markets. And yeah,
It's very
that.
impressive.
Yeah.
Impressive, mate. And if we were a bit more organized, we should have you should have had something that we could bring up, and maybe if it's not too late, you could do it in the background there. But yeah, it's very as you mentioned, I've had a quick look and very customizable. You know, you can filter by if you're looking for a gold developer or a what's the latest lithium or whatever. You can filter it through from there by state, by what gram, by all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, so all the intervals, the project, what year. I mean, the list goes on. There's maps there. I mean, yeah. Again, don't want to plug it, but it's been a great experience for me because I've been able to take something that I love, which is investing in the markets, and also like the entrepreneurial side of getting really into a business and actually building my own thing. And I never thought that I would be able to bring them together like that, but it's been great that it has. And regardless of whether I sell one subscription or 600 subscriptions, I've learned so much from that experience, and so much from being able to get that to a place of an idea, and exactly like you had, like just some numbers on an Excel sheet, all the way up to a product that people can touch, feel, and hopefully make good informed investment decisions with. And like that learning experience is, whether it works or not, doesn't matter. I've gained really, really valuable knowledge for myself, which makes the next time or the next time or the next time that much easier to execute on.
Yeah, and that's probably why we're on a call together, mate, because we have very, very similar outlooks and backgrounds. So yeah, loving what you're doing there. And mate, we're just looking back at the trade. So we've you're holding firm.
Yeah. Maybe if I wasn't talking and rambling so much, I might have added, but hindsight's a wonderful thing. I'm even thinking I might shave another 10 off around here. But are still all thoughts. And the other thing that's probably important to mention is that none of that is rules based. I mean, like we said, this trading's we're not playing for sheep stations. I'm just sort of trying to get some points on the board here. So I would not be.
It looks like you're going to finish in the green. So that's a great start for you.
Don't jinx it, mate. Goodness.
So is there anything you want to say just around, again, trading style with the turnaround, the midday turnaround? Is there any kind of hard data, or it's just anecdotal? What are you?
No, honestly, it's still something I'm working every day on and developing. And I mean, unfortunately, you're on the receiving end of that. You get a million questions every time we get on to do one of these catch ups. But it's something I'm still learning, and I'm just trying to take the same approach. And I've taken a leaf out of your book, really using data, using price and time frame to create meaningful trade insights that just give me a statistical edge. I mean, maybe later we can get into sort of how I formed my first couple of strategies in equities post that first 5-year investment, and that sort of wind up, because my future.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to know about. I guess the equities, your strategy there. If you want to give a quick background on that, and then I know you're obviously trading some futures now. So why that transition? What's been the most challenging part, etc., etc.
Yeah. I actually might just backtrack quickly, and I'll just finish the story of my amazing 5-year first investment.
Yep.
Is that? Yeah.
I thought it was just going to end in rivers of gold.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I thought too. And I think this is imperative to the story arc and where we are. And it's so important because no matter who you are, honestly, the amount of people I've spoken to and they've got the exact same arc is ridiculous.
So this was a mining company, a little mining.
Yeah. Company. So this mining company had done quite well for me. I'd sort of, as a heap of lessons I can take out of it, but it eventually got to this point in time where they were doing coal. And they'd gotten this mine to a point where it was Q3, and I was going to get the Q3 announcement any day now, and it was going to tell me that they'd successfully started production, they'd shipped this much coal, and they were making this much money. I remember it vividly. I was sitting in a meeting at 10 a.m. and the notification that the market had an announcement for this ticker came up on my phone. I put it down, finished my 15-minute meeting or whatever, opened it up in the meeting room, and I looked down and the stock had opened down 50%. And I just hit this amazing paralysis that Yeah, it's all. I would liken it to like when you roll a car and everything goes in slow motion. It was.
So you couldn't make a decision in that moment, or you were just
I could
trying to
not.
process.
There was a lot to process. It wasn't something that I'd given a condition for. Like if
Yeah, yeah.
market puts stock to zero, what the hell do I do? So
Is that a lesson
I
in itself?
there are many lessons, and that is a lesson in itself. That I had an amazing confirmation bias on this stock. I had so many biases running on this, and if I took a step back well afterwards, and there was red flags I could find everywhere. But I fumbled and didn't do anything, and instead what I did was I put my phone down, and it was by this time sort of 10:45. I was working corporate job, went down the elevator, went for a walk, ended up at a bar. I took 2 shots of vodka at 11 a.m. as soon as they could serve, and I went back up and
great.
finished my work day, and I did not look at the market.
You didn't look at it.
No,
How could you
didn't
not look at it?
because I did not want. I mean, it was all of my money, and I thought that I was about to not only move. I think I was 100 grand, over 100 grand in profit at that time. And I thought, if it's 50% down, it'll come back to 20%, and at the end of the day, I'll sort of I'll reassess. I'll get to it then, because like there's no way it can be 50% down and go any lower. And you go back and look at the day on this stock, and it just continued directly one way. So it was, yeah.
And
It was.
it missed consensus, or?
So not only did they not start production, the mine had a plethora of issues, and shortly after that they had some debt, and the debtor called in that note, and they were unable to repay it, and it eventually ended up the company went to zero. So I lost in total about 130, 140 grand. Of which I had about 25 grand of leverage in. So I had 25 grand debt as well that I had started with, that I now had. And this is going to be just wild to listen to, but when it was all said and done, I had $1,855 left to my name.
That's incredible. How did you get back off the carpet after that?
Yeah, mate, like I remember driving that night. I went for a very, very long drive. Once I sort of sold out of everything, and I I'd understood that what financial position I was now in. And I went for a drive, and mate, I just went to myself. I was like, this is a very pivotal moment in my whole life, which sounds stupid, and there's many lessons I can learn, but I said for me to be able to get to that, there's 2 ways I can go right now. I can go poor me, I can go curl up in a corner, cry my eyes out, I can't believe this happened. I had it. Exactly. Or I could go, yep, that's happened. Give it another 2 days, go write down every single lesson that you can think of and what the heck you're going to do about it and where you're going to go from there. And use it as a firecracker up the arse. And I chose to go that way, and I went, cool, you can't pity yourself. It was only you who got yourself into that position. There was nothing. You were making all the calls the whole way through. You got yourself into that position. You wouldn't be crying about it if it had gone right and you were 230 grand up. So yeah, I had to swallow my medicine.
How do you get over the self-loathing side of it? Because that's something that I've dealt with a lot.
Yeah. It was tough, and I actually didn't let myself have too much of it. And I think that the most important lesson, and I've been lucky that I feel like I do have good perspective in my life, but the most important lesson that I had coming out of that, and it was the first one I was able to fully crystallize and write down, is that I still had my health, I still had my family and people that love me, and I still had a job, so there was a roof over my head. So all things else, like I still had those 3 things, and that was purely the biggest lesson I had out of the markets and everything, and that was the single thing that sort of got me probably through the other side of that was, I'm still, I had the opportunity to lose $140,000.
Yeah. It's a
So
good way
many
to
other
think about
people
it. Good
aren't.
perspective.
So many other people don't get that opportunity, which it says a lot. So and then there was a heap of trading lessons from that as well. We can go into that if you want. I can just breeze over that. But
Well, I'll just as your number one podcast host here, I'll just let you know as well. I think we're just nearly breaking new day lows. So if you wanted to take that a little bit off, like you were saying, feel free.
Is the market going to zero?
Today it is, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, I might as well just hold it. No, I'll take another. I'll take 15 off here.
Responsible, yeah. Well done.
Yep, and so that leaves me with a whole 15 orders short still, which I'll just hold for a little bit. And you know what? I might even play that pretty safe. If I see a revisit of 71, 43 or 44,
yep,
I'll take the rest off. But the rest of might just that'll be my goal low parcel.
Yep. You've done.
Yep.
Well, that's why it's your goal, mate. You're gonna try and beat me, are you? I'm not sure if that's possible, actually. No.
It'll
have to go to zero.
And I was like,
you should have helped.
Exactly.
There was a message behind me trying to tell you to take profit there.
Yeah, you're jeopardizing me.
So what, mate? I'm interested in your kind of transition to futures, though. What kind of drove that? And what have you found hard? What have you found easy? Would you recommend it? I mean, this is something that probably I've followed a similar path in terms of I used to trade shares as well. Now I don't think I could. I don't think I've got that much bandwidth to keep track of opportunities and all the rest of it across 2,000 stocks or whatever. I find futures just very simple. Just get to know one or two things really, really well inside out. But I was thinking this morning of the attraction of equities. I think it was on the AFR where they showed, $10 invested in Nvidia and Apple, and for I think it was 2012 or something like that. Nvidia would be worth 1.2 million bucks today off, I think it was 10,000 starting, and the rest were not bad either, a couple of $100,000. So I guess that's and similar with speccing mining stocks or biotechs or whatever. Is that the allure for people trading equities?
I think so, and I have now had the opportunity to sort of spend several years, like really in the chat rooms and in the depths of trading the Australian market, at least. And the thing I've found is that, and I'm not sure these people know it, but there's almost like a fine line between having a proven trading strategy that you can execute repeatably on the entire equities market and just educated gambling in a way. And a lot of people, I think, need to maybe have a think about, especially those early traders, whether you actually do have a strategy or whether you rock up to the market and you consider doing something differently every day. And that's,
I'd agree with that. You don't really think, I don't think I did think of an edge when I first started trading. You just think, I'm reading the annual report. I think you've got to go in thinking, well, what have I got that other people don't?
Yeah, and I mean, I had in the end there, I did have a couple of good strategies with Edge, but and I executed on those profitably. But in the meantime, I was also taking trades throughout the day that someone might have called in chat, or I was jumping at a shadow or something like that. And so I had two things going through me at the sort of start to mid of this year. I had edge decay on my strategy that was working in equities. So that means previously I had a strategy where essentially the whole market had to be going up, and you'd have strong leading stocks, and I would momentum right breakouts in did a lot of work on that and got it quantified, and it had proven edge the way I was trading that. But the market then sort of it's now gone into a sort of a ranging type session, and whether that's
so your strategy
that's
didn't work in that consolidation phase.
Yeah. So I had edge decay there, and I took too long to pivot out of that. And so what I do now in equities is essentially learn, just like, it's honestly like, find one thing and look at it every single day, and you'll be able to find the nuances and understand that. And that is edge in itself. Like, understand how a certain product or a certain stock moves better than any other stock. And that just puts you so far ahead of, someone that will trade 20 different stocks a day, I think. I mean, everyone's different. This is just my
But you do hear
my
that
opinion,
a lot from when they interview top traders, and whether they're top traders or not is debatable. But the guys that are out there on social and all the rest of it, and they say that a lot, that they only trade a couple of tickers, and usually these are US guys, so they're trading Facebook or Amazon or Tesla or whatever, but they just know the price action inside out.
And I mean, that's what you do with your indices, and I mean, that's sort of what I do now. I sort of I've taken a leaf out of a guy, Bo. He's gone on a route of what his best sort of trades, and I hope we can get him on a show. But he found fundamental value in a stock, learnt the tape, learnt the structure of how these stocks sort of come out of that basing pattern. And I've sort of followed in his steps in a similar way. And I essentially just find a one concentrated bet in equities now, or it can be two, but it's one concentrated bet in equities. And I just learn that stock inside out. And that way I can tell if something's changed, if there's been some sort of change in the book, change in the fundamental of the company, and it just gives me confidence. I know that stock. And I mean, I'm trying to do the same on an intraday level with the Oz 200 market now. And I mean, I've been trading it for 2 months now, and probably slightly profitable overall on the Oz 200. And a lot of that's been experimenting, and I do spend a lot of my time back testing. So I essentially just pull out all the 30-minute data, have that in an Excel spreadsheet, and I've just been, just cycling through it, trying to figure out where there's some sort of inefficiency or something.
So
I notice.
What are you looking for? Are you looking for large changes? Are you looking for patterns going the same way, given something else? What are you?
So it usually starts with like a question that I ask. And so it could be, for some reason, the last 3 days, this is theoretical, the last 3 days, there's been a gap up, and in the pre-market, it's moved 20 points, and then it's come back down to pretty much like flat by the end of pre-market. Okay, what is that? Is that that nuance? Is that some sort of edge there? Like, is that preluding to how the day will eventuate? Is that anything? And so I ask these questions of what I see in nuance moves in the market. And it doesn't even have to be nuance, like moves in the market. I ask questions of that, and then I use the data to either confirm what I'm seeing or reject. It's just hypothesis testing. Confirm or reject what I'm seeing. Yeah. And I mean, I'm also very wary of sort of stuff that I do see may last for a period of time and work in a certain market, and then I will be back at square one where it won't be a thing anymore. And so that's also something that I'm very, very conscious of with futures, that I need to be continually monitoring the edge, or if I do discover new edge, how long that sort of occurs and lasts for.
Yeah. How do you manage? I'm interested in how do you manage dealing with different inputs from, Twitter, Discord groups that we're in, my stuff, which you follow as well. I'm interested in, because I've had people obviously saying, they want to keep the blinkers on, but there's obviously all these different inputs that are coming in, and we had this discussion this morning around traders that are just starting out are probably more easily influenced by whether it's people that they know in Twitter or chat rooms or whatever, whereas I guess I'm at a point in my career where we had the discussion that nobody could say anything to kind of change my opinion on a trade. So yeah, interested to kind of how you think about that. But because you still want to grab the good pieces of information out there, because there are some, but how do you not just become trading one way or another every time you see a different thought?
Yeah, no, I think if I could turn back the clock, right? If I could turn back the clock to when I first joined these chat rooms and everything, and you sort of see these people who are making very bold claims or very bold calls about where they see the stock going, and it might happen 2 times, and then you go, "Wow, okay, this guy's a genius." You either consciously or subconsciously start to believe, that person's calls start to influence you, right? Because there's an awareness bias of you being able to understand that you've seen something twice, and the recency of that must then extrapolate to their future calls.
So how do you use someone expertise that seems to be getting some calls right without blindly following them?
Yeah, I mean, if they're making good calls, I think the better way to do and get benefit out of what they're doing is to, instead of copying them, understand how they got to the point where they can make good calls. And I mean, I'll just use you as an example, right? When I first didn't know anything about you, you were making calls on sort of maybe where the day time frame expectancy would eventuate on futures, and you would publish that, and it was right, and then you had one that was off, and then you were right again, and I just went, okay, like every other time I would have gone, oh, that's I'll follow him blindly, or I won't follow him at all. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But then I talked to you, and I understood how you had compiled your data to get a strategy that worked for you, and how you used the strategy to then come up with that end product, which is either a call on a ticker or whatever it is. So if I was someone who saw that someone was doing something good, rather than just following them, I'd learn the cogs of how they got to that point in the first place. So throw out, if you see in Discord, if you see a ticker, throw out any sort of blind trading that. Essentially go to the person and say, oh, like, this strategy must work really well for you. What's the strategy? Or how did you get to that point where you can essentially make those consistent reoccurring calls on a name or names? And that won't give you something that's profitable tomorrow, but that will set up the structure of your trading to then be able to implement that into your own universe of stocks or whatever it is you trade, and do that consistently and profitably.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, mate. Like I know I sent something out yesterday saying, give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man a fish, he eats for a lifetime. So, and I'm very clear with obviously all my stuff that it's I'm not your guru. I don't want people following me blindly. But if you guys understand, I guess, the way that I'm thinking about things, and from a data point of view, then that might get you, as you say, you just keep asking questions and back testing and all the rest of it, and you'll find that your growth kind of improves from there. So, mate, you mentioned
And if you're a new
sorry, go on.
Sorry, if you're like a new intraday equities trader, for example, and you see someone putting out calls of a morning, and you think like, oh, okay, then maybe that data side or what we've just spoken about doesn't apply. It does, because you need to then go ask to that equities trader or backsolve for them what it is they're looking for in a catalyst. What sort of stocks are they consistently trading? What sort of context do you have around that? And you need to be asking those questions to then backsolve and understand how they do it, and then apply that to your own, or build on that and come up with your own edge. So there's no edge in copying someone, or listening to the influence of other people. And I mean, back on that original question, it's really hard to not be like influenced by people's emotional language in a chat room. And I mean, it's something that maybe you just have to sort of tone down the amount that you're relying on that, and build the confidence in your own system to execute that.
Yeah,
Regardless
exactly.
of the noise.
Yeah, 100%. Now, mate, I've got 30 seconds left on my timer, and you're all closed out. So well traded.
Yes,
You've
yep.
got $21,113.80 from 20 grand in
Take it. I'll take it.
less than an hour. So congratulations, and we'll check the
Thank you.
leaderboard before we wrap up. But a few other things that I just want to get to before we get to the end of it. So you mentioned one kind of lesson there that you give to new traders. If you could go back, I guess, to the start of your journey, what would you? Any insights? Sorry, that's a timer. Any big kind of insights, light bulb moments that you'd pass on to someone that's just starting out?
Mate, if I could maybe not pass on to someone else, but it's probably easiest if I just think about this like back for myself. A couple of things would be, one is that I'm not special. Like, people have to put in incredibly large amounts of work to build a strategy or an edge. Ridiculous amounts. And that like me shortcutting any of that is not going to work. Like, I'm not special. I'm not smarter than anyone else in the market. I need to 100% go put in the work on my own and put in ridiculous hours, not shortcut anything. And I mean, when you see all these podcasts or traders or people who are successful say it takes 2, 3, 4 year degree, like it takes that long, it's not any different for you. No matter like how much early success you have, no matter how much no matter how much you're blinded by, you think that you know the market's better or you've got a better grasp on it, like, man, it is a 3 or 4 year degree. And so if you can conserve your capital and spend time learning, and you're going to have to go through this drawdown in your learning, that's just the cost of trading, the cost of doing business. But I mean, if you can accept the fact that you're not special, accept the fact that you're going to have to go through that and earn your right to be trading bigger size, making money, making it a full-time thing. If you can come to that acceptance and that realization earlier, it's going to save you more money, and you're going to be trading with smaller size to understand that you need to go through that process and build it up. And yeah, I mean, the quicker you're jumping to the end goal and trying to not delay the gratification, like the more you're going to be taking a step backwards, losing more money. And I mean, dude, I reckon that's like, I don't know, talk to me on this, but I reckon that's like why 90% of that statistical 90% of traders don't make it. And I think it's because they don't give themselves the window or the time frame to make it. Like they burn capital up or whatever it may be before they get that time,
Yeah, I'd probably agree with you on some of that and disagree a little bit in terms of, I think definitely from the emotional discipline mental side, that's probably not a 4-year degree, that's probably a 30-year degree. But I think that's the hardest part of it. The other thing that I'd say is I think it is possible to shorten the time frame by finding good people, and I'm not talking just about me here, but I mean, I think you could go out and take your advice in terms of position sizing and literally trade, one share, one contract in the futures, whatever, and you could probably try follow 20 or 30 people over the 4 years, testing their strategies. But the key is that you don't want to blow, as you say, you don't want to blow your account up on the second person that you're trying to, learn from. So, but yeah, for me, I think it's, I mean, I'm still far from a finished product, and, it's the discipline, it's the decision making based on the information that you've got in front of you. And, as I said, I put a post out this morning about, all the finfluencers out there, and that, there's so many, there's a lot of confusion, I think, in terms of, I was reading one this morning that got sent to me, and it was, it was one of those ones, well, if it breaks through this level, it's going to go here, which is 20 points higher, but unless it's a failed breakout, and then it'll go lower. I'm like, well, how do I use that? Like, what? So that's what I kind of struggle with, and I think people are, it's hard for, especially if you're starting out, and that's why I just completely agree with you. Just use very small portion sizes, and don't think that you're gonna despite what you see on Twitter, don't think that in 12 months you're going to be, got $1 million to your name.
Yeah. I think you touched on something that I want to expand more on there, and that's the power of people. And I think trading is a very, very solo sport. And if you never wanted to see anyone and you wanted to trade, you could do that. But I have made the effort to go and meet many, many, many traders. I mean, I've met some like really good friends. I've obviously met you. I've met, so I can put that in the same basket. Sorry. I have met a lot of people through trading, and they have all are at various stages. And I mean, I can go pinpoint myself on where they've been or where they're going. And I mean, I've got a guy that I met in Bali that I go and cry to every time I think I've blown my account and life's over. I've got a guy that I catch up with on Discord like a couple of times a week, or once or twice sort of every 6 months for a coffee. And he's the guy that when I'm overly optimistic about something, I go to him, and he just has this amazing ability to critically analyze what I'm saying and just like tear shreds off me. And like the people that you meet are going to sort of influence and change how you trade, and that is the most valuable. I think one of the most valuable things that you can do is get out there and meet people, actually actually like message people in Discord, and don't be afraid to be annoying or whatever it may be. Make the connections, and you'll be surprised like who you get to meet. And
yeah, that's mate. Now that you mentioned it, that's probably the one of the most impressive things about you. I mean, anybody that I mention on Twitter or whatever, you know them, or you've messaged them or whatnot. So yeah, super impressive in that respect. But yeah, you're 100% right. Like I think once you find your tribe and you make these connections, and so how would you kind of suggest people do that? Through just commenting on Twitter if you like what someone's kind of doing, or trying to join a Discord group, or just everybody on Twitter just send you a message.
no, definitely don't do that. I mean, if you're looking for like a mentor, I wouldn't just go messaging anyone that you think is successful, and trying to get off in that. I think there has to be a value exchange and a mentor-mentee relationship. So whether they're looking for someone to help with data and you have the skills to help with that, or whether you think that you're particularly good, you have really amazing fundamental knowledge on lithium or something like that, and you can help with that. That's maybe how I'd approach that. But if you're just trying to like meet people, understand how they work, one, you've got to have a genuine interest in them and what they're doing. So, I mean, you have to be able to ask and really understand and have those insightful questions that provoke good answers. And yeah, I mean, if you find someone that you want to approach, just send a message. Literally, just g'day. Like, don't make it paragraphs long. Just send them a message saying, "Hey, I saw this tweet. I thought this was really interesting. Like previously, I would have framed it like this, but you've gone and framed it like that. Why? How? How has that gone for you?" And you'd be surprised like how much people are willing to share about even their strategies. Like honestly, some people are just open books with that stuff.
Yeah, and even if you're in the same postcode or city, just reach out. I've done that plenty. Just living on the Gold Coast. Hey, see you're a fellow Gold Coastian. Let's catch up for a coffee, whatnot. So yeah, I think that's a really, really good point, mate. We're probably getting to the end of where we need to wrap up. But what unless there's anything else you want to mention, but I'm thinking what's the next kind of 12 to say 5 years looking like for the Churgs?
Mate, that's a really good question. Obviously I want to keep meeting people, and mate, honestly, like my 5-year plan would be to get out of this home office and get back into a space where other traders or other people in the markets or whatever are sharing a common space, like whether it's through people that are with miners data or doing what you're doing, or whether they are just traders. I really want to in the next 5 years have a space that you're getting people in person to collaborate. And I think, this one of the guys that I mentioned, him and I talk about this nonstop, where if we could just have a co-working space where at the end of each day we go into a meeting room and we talk about our trades, we talk about our write-ups, and we like scrutinize each other, and you're in that environment that's building each other up, like that would do wonders for my own trading, wonders for my own sort of progress. So rather selfishly, I want to bring a group of people together under one roof and trade and do business with them in some sort of form. That's my
Wow,
that's my 5-year
incredible
goal.
mate.
Yeah.
What a great idea. I think I was listening to one last week of who was it? One of the guys on Chat with Traders that did a similar thing in New York, and yeah, it was. I think it probably a little bit too wild for likes of you, mate. What he got up to, but yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. I think that'd be brilliant. So if you're in Brisbane or in Queensland and like the sound of that, feel free to reach out to Churgers. Mate.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to touch on before we wrap up?
No, mate. No, I think if you have liked what you've heard, give it a like. Please do share. That sort of just tells us that we're doing the right sort of thing. This episode is obviously a bit of an odd one, these first two just between you and I, but we do have some really interesting and amazing guests coming up that are on futures and equities. I've even got a guy that, don't know if he'd be up for it, but a really good guy on mindset, things like that, who we want to approach and get on. So please let us know if we're on the right track with how we're framing and sort of devising these podcast sessions. And yeah, we can go from there and hopefully, sort of deliver value to people that are listening. It's sort of the podcast I wanted to have.
Yeah, and as you say, if people can let us know if we're doing well or not, that would be any comments or advice. That'd be brilliant. Now, mate, do you just want to go run through that leaderboard for me? If you can just bring it up.
No, mate, don't actually have that. Don't have that on me. Sorry, we're gonna have to.
Maybe next time.
How much did you end up making?
You should have that, mate. But 21. I think it was at 195 or 22 195.
Okay, 20. I think it was 22.95 or something like that. 20, yeah. So obviously you're in first place. We've got the leaderboard up now. You're in first place there. I've just made $1,113.80. So that puts me in second spot. Not bad.
Not a bad day.
Not a bad day. And yeah, we'll see how we go. See if that leaderboard stands.
Brilliant.
We need to come up with a name with it. That's what we need to do.
We do, yes. Yep. We'll work on that. But we've got some really good guests coming up and back to a decent host next time. So thank you, Churgs. That was brilliant, mate. Enjoyed the chat. Learned a lot about you. I'm not sure if it's a good or bad thing, but enjoyed it, mate.
No, good. All right. I'll catch you in the next one.
Thanks, sir.